Cool. Hey everybody, it's Phil Struzula from Select Software Reviews. Back with another interview today with an entrepreneur. Do you mind introducing yourself? What do you do? Where have you been? What does your company do?
Absolutely. I'm Joe. Hi, everyone. I'm the founder of McRoberts. My name is Joe McRoberts. That's where the name comes from. We are a digital recruitment marketing agency. We help big companies recruit at scale using digital marketing strategies. I've spent the last 12 years growing businesses, not in recruitment, with digital marketing. And then in my previous agency found that these approaches, looking at data, conversion rate optimization, targeting the right people, qualifying people, work really, really well for recruitment. So that's how I've ended up here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the age-old saying recruiting is like marketing. And I feel like a lot of people should tack onto that, but like most talent acquisition teams are not very good at marketing. And it sounds like you took basically a deep digital marketing background and applied it to this problem, which is not too dissimilar from, trying to get somebody to buy a mattress or a computer or take a vacation or whatever, but it's a much more important decision where you're going to work next.
Totally. And I don't know how much digital marketing expertise is in HR teams. I don't want to assume in the companies that I work with, and they're big, there aren't digital marketing, like deep digital marketing skills like PPC, etc. So yeah, it's a nice little sweet spot in the middle. And one thing I like is that it's a lot, rather than just getting people to buy more and more and more stuff and scale a business beyond, what was imaginable, 10x, 20x and more, the impetus to hire people because you have to hire them because you're a transport company and you need a driver is far greater than a founder saying, I want to grow 10x versus just saying, okay, let's settle for 5.
Mm. So, what have you found? Like, what are the best channels for attracting talent? Because I think most HR and TA people out there, they're going to go to Indeed, LinkedIn, and you're probably doing some of that as well. But I wonder if there's any like non-obvious channels.
There are, but it is dependent on every business. But I can tell you, I don't want to be too guarded about it, but I know that 95% of companies I talk to are not using the best performing channels.
Interesting. And are they like things people would know about it, or you're like, hey, for truck drivers, there's like a bunch of niche publishers, and for nurses, there's a bunch of niche publishers?
No, it's essentially, mainstream platforms that everybody knows.
Okay. So maybe the Google, Facebook, sort of paradigm, but
basically, and it's not just social media, because social media it works, right? But it's like growing businesses. They're people at the top of the funnel. They might not be looking for a job even, but you can convince them that actually they're going to be happier somewhere else, and that their life will actually be better. But yeah, there are other high intent channels.
Very nice. I won't press you too hard because it's obviously the part of the gold that you're reselling and helping your clients with. But
yeah, I don't want to be too guarded, but it is kind of the secret sauce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I totally get it. I totally get it. I remember, I think it was like 5 years ago, I went to this company in Texas. It's a job board aggregator. And what they had this program where they would pay you per applicant. And so like anybody in the world could find applicants for these companies, and they would pay you, $10, $100, whatever, depending on the quality of the applicant. And I remember there was some guy who was making like $1 million a month finding truck drivers, and he was basically just going on Facebook. He had some really good targeting, and it
Yeah,
was like, hey, do you want to make X? And like that was it, right?
yeah,
And it probably, probably right now he's not doing the same exact thing and making a similar amount of money, but it is
yeah.
sort of interesting how there was this underexploited channel and messaging too around specifically salary that he was able to execute on.
Totally. I've got a lot of experience in the driver market, actually. It's maybe a specific one. But I would say that, yes, the channel is obviously key, and each channel is different. It's an audience with a different frame of mind, etc. But more crucially than that, the journey you take them on from there and how targeted that journey is, and the messaging and the structure of the web pages that they go to based on where they've come from. And what I'm talking about in marketing terms is conversion rate optimization. That's just as key.
How do
So,
you, when you're kind of targeting a new persona, how do
yeah,
you learn about what matters to a truck driver? Like you basically like putting together some hypotheses and just running experiments and looking at the data, or are you talking to
yeah,
people like truck drivers or talking to the
yeah,
recruiters?
yeah. It's those two things, right? It's I guess there's some base level experience in the industry, but yes, you can't do better than talking to people. Um, but then at the same time, yeah, I do like the kind of magic side where you put together a proposition based on, I guess, from my side, 10 years of experience of building propositions and testing them, right? And then following the data. It's
Mm.
that whole like throwing pasta at the wall and seeing what sticks thing. But nothing's better than talking to the people themselves and learning what they don't like as well as what they do like.
Mm. And what are a couple examples of propositions that you might test?
Yeah, my general approach, if I was going to summarize it, it's always good to test factual versus emotional. Some people say people's decisions are always emotional in the end. But people don't like to be sold to, in my experience. People want the facts, and there are maybe blurred lines between the two, but yeah, I think they're the two key obvious routes, right? So, how are you going to feel as a result of making this shift in your life versus, um, salary, days off per week, perks, etc.
Mm.
They're probably both going to play a role, but to be honest, I more often than not find that factual propositions perform better.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like a lot of people, probably everybody, has been sold something in a job process that maybe wasn't true in practice. And
Yeah,
so we all are a little skeptical, and it's just sort of like, don't tell me about the culture necessarily. Maybe that is important,
yeah,
but if you're telling me I'm going to make 15% more, then like I know that's true.
yeah, yeah. Yes, it's a mix of the two, but
What else?
you can test as many things as you like, right? So you can switch one point out and replace it with something else, switch out the call to action, etc.
What else have you found increases conversions on page? Is it like
Yeah,
different calls to action?
nothing beats testimonials, right? It's an obvious point. I think this is where everything I say, I'm like, well, I don't know actually if this is obvious in the industry or not. It's certainly obvious in marketing products and services. But yeah, nothing beats testimonials. It's proof of what something is actually like, and video even better. Um,
So employee testimonials, hey, here's what it's like to work here.
yeah.
And how do you have you found that some of those are more effective than others? Like what are the characteristics of employee testimonials that are more effective?
That's where you go on this journey, right? So you start testing ads, you start testing pages, and you start finding the hooks and the messaging that works, and then you might be like, right, let's invest in some high quality content like video, um, because we know what's going to work. So, but then you don't want to be too leading in your interviews with people, right? So but generally they should be aligned. So if you're interviewing someone, you've got to try and get your key points across, which you know are going to work, but you obviously want the person to be authentic as well. And there's the stuff that you don't expect, you know. As someone who's created lots of videos with teams before, there are some characters, right, where you're just like, this person is gold, like something, there's some gravitas about this person. They're amazing on screen, and they just make you feel really bright and happy, and there's a lot of energy there. So you've kind of got to follow where it takes you at that point.
Have you found that demographics matter? Like, does a woman want to hear from a woman?
Yes. Yes, in every case. And there have been changes to the major advertising platforms in the last, someone might put a comment correcting me on this, but certainly in the last 6 months, you can't target people of certain, you can't target by gender or age. This is in the UK, by the way. It might be different in the US. So yes, a year ago, I would 100% match age and gender with the audience I was going after. And you can see the clear differences in cost per hire. And that's where, just to be clear, from my perspective, cost per hire is really the measure of what was successful, and retention rates. So we'll, as marketers, we'll always look at, okay, how much was it to get someone to apply? How much was it to actually hire someone? And you'll see definitely with different demographics, in a few cases I've seen, the company want to hire more women, but the women are more expensive to acquire, but we just want more women, so fine.
Yeah, interesting. Have you also noticed that different calls to action drive conversions?
Yeah, definitely. And it differs at what stage you're at in the funnel. So if you're on the ads level, something non-committal, like learn more, will perform better than apply now. If you're further into the funnel, I'm actually still testing some of these. It's sometimes the data isn't too concrete, but I would broadly say that start your application is better performing than apply now.
Okay, interesting. And I guess the people who are higher in the funnel, are you putting them through like a nurture sequence, or are you also having them apply just a different language on the button?
Yeah, they get nurtured by automated comms. And again, the richness, this should be obvious to everybody watching this video, right? I imagine, but the richer that content is, again, humanizing everything. Meet, Phil, a truck driver, to use the example you were saying, in Boston, and really humanizing that experience. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think these are some of the things that people have been talking about in this industry for quite some time. And it's kind of cool that you're actually doing it. And these internal TA teams that have a lot of competencies, but don't really have this marketing background are able to use your expertise.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole load of boring gumph that goes underneath it, like setting up tracking and tracking braking and monitoring all these things and building automated reporting and integration, right? Automatically sending applicants into a company's ATS. So we've got a team dedicated to that. But there's all this stuff that goes on underneath. But as I say, yeah, it's interesting because I am naive to the industry. I think there's a power in that. But yeah, I'm naive to what extent people are using these tactics, which is why I was slightly guarded.
Yeah, I think you should be, and I think it's great what you're doing. I'm curious, like, for people out there who are listening to this, and maybe they're not quite at the scale where they could leverage this sort of expertise, and they really want to try to figure out, how do I make my career site better or whatever. You've given some good tips around understanding persona, value props, talking to people. do you have like some of the inverses of that to kind of hit home on these points around like, the worst career site I've ever seen, or the worst campaign I've ever seen?
Yeah, I like the question. Okay, so there are some more boring things which are definite no-nos generally. Okay, so you don't really want to switch between domains in that journey. It's always a bad thing to do, and it causes problems. And when I say that, you might have a career site supplier, which is on a subdomain called jobs.yourcompany.com. But your actual other stuff is on a different domain. From my perspective, if you switch between domains in that journey at the wrong points, then you won't track what's going on. So that's maybe a more boring example. To come back to what you said earlier, you mentioned salary. And interestingly, and it doesn't apply to all jobs, but interestingly, I found that salary in some cases doesn't improve performance. It performs worse, dependent on the role. But no, I haven't had any total car crashes.
That's good. Performs worse at what part of the funnel? Because I would imagine maybe it makes some people opt out, but maybe it's like a cleaner conversion throughout the rest of the funnel.
Yeah, totally. To be honest, it is really dependent on where your salary sits in the market, right?
Okay.
Is it an actual USP or is it a deterrent?
Yeah, right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Any recent trends that you're seeing in the job market last, month or two?
Last month or two. I mean, what I'm seeing a few tech platforms pop up that do what I'm talking about to an extent. And I'm interested in that because obviously tech platforms are built to scale. So you're looking at a kind of one size fits all approach. Whereas we're a team of a small team, 6 of us, of digital marketing experts. And the same with growing businesses. The whole industry is going to constantly change, right? Platforms change. Facebook is dying, TikTok is coming up, all this kind of stuff. And your messaging changes as your company changes and as the world changes. So you do need an approach that is able to adapt. So I do think there's going to be, in the next couple of years, a significant increase in the platforms purporting to do what I'm talking about. But I'm wary of them. It's right, it's a price point thing.
Yeah, I think there's also, at the end of the day, even if there's a strong platform, you need expertise, you need to make it bespoke to what your goals are, your personas, etc. So
yeah. And
there's still a lot that has to happen.
And then the other thing I would say is recruiters sifting through CVs or applications is not, I'm talking about high volume roles here, right? And I didn't really clarify that at the beginning. If you're recruiting for a high volume position, like an airport attendant or something, certainly sifting through applications is going to be a thing of the past, right? I think CVs, I don't know to what extent that's still going on in the US, but yeah, looking through CVs won't exist for very long.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, I had this conversation last week with somebody, and whether or not that was going to be the case going forward. Where can people find you if they want to connect with Joe?
Yeah, so the website is McRoberts, MC Roberts, not MAC, McRoberts.co.uk. That's where we are. You can read about us. You can have a chat with me.
Sounds good, Joe. Thanks a lot for sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice to talk you through.